This is not about a manipulation to get them to change. I know, right? You may have some parts that want the other person to change and you want to share in a way that will make them change. This is not that. It doesn't work. But what does work is being able to share from your center, speaking for your parts in a way that has vulnerability and courage and is squeaky clean. That is actually the thing that helps them hear and understand and actually helps change. Welcome to Self-Led Love with me, your host, Bahia Miller. Together, using the powerful framework of internal family systems, we will take on the spiritual and oh-so-human curriculum of becoming radically responsible for our parts and how they show up and grow up in intimate partnership. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. One of the things that I see happen so often with couples is that one partner will want to express their feelings, express how something is occurring for them, express their experience, and then the other partner ends up having a hard time listening, getting defensive, shutting down, walking away, lashing back out. Part of the reason that this happens is that maybe there are more skillful ways that we could express ourselves. And we can get so focused and fixated on the fact that they are lashing out, shutting down, walking away, that we don't slow down enough to actually learn this skill of speaking from our center. I call it speaking from our center. This is really speaking for our parts and not from our parts. And so often we are wanting to share something that's coming up for us in the moment when we haven't actually taken the time to slow down and really understand the different parts of us, the different emotions and thoughts that are all kind of swirling together. We just want to express them. And when we haven't slowed down enough to really be in relationship to that inner experience yet within ourselves, oftentimes we end up just sharing in a way that maybe blames our partner a little bit or makes them seem like the issue in the experience. And yes, they may have been the trigger, right? They may have kind of been the one that initiated the experience we're having inside of ourselves. But it makes sense that if we're sharing in a way that's making them feel attacked, that they're going to feel attacked and get defensive. So how can we really take a little bit more radical responsibility for the ways that we are communicating, right? This is the only place that we actually truly have power. We can't control how our partner is going to listen. So if we can't control that, we might as well just focus on speaking clearly and from the heart and for our parts. And so how to do this, the distinction of speaking for versus speaking from our parts, right? When we're completely blended with a part of us, when we're activated, when we're still in the emotion and we just want to express it and feel heard and validated and have empathy and compassion, right? That is a tricky place for a lot of partners to be able to listen, right? Because a lot of the time they're going to feel like they're being made responsible for this feeling, or maybe it feels like too much for them to hold and they don't know how to be with it, or they might have parts that come in and want to try and help and fix things and we just want to feel heard. So things can get messy really fast. And so this is when this tool of the U-turn becomes really imperative, really helpful. And so the U-turn, if you haven't heard this phrase before, the U-turn is this shift in orientation of our focus from the other person to coming back to ourselves, right? So if the other person said something that made us feel a certain way, we get to do the mature work of slowing down and stopping and pausing or putting a pin in this and going back to our own corner, right? Our own safe space to really be in relationship to what came up for me in that moment when they said that thing before we engage with them about it. It's so important that we do this and take the time to slow down and understand what was really happening for me in that moment. Because again, if we don't, then we're just kind of regurgitating our experience, our word vomit, are not fully formed thought, and then it's going to create more confusion and more distance and disconnection between you and your partner often. So how to do this U-turn? Like I was saying, moving to your own corner. What I mean by that is that taking a pause in the conversation, or just internally putting a pin in it, right? Saying, okay, I'm going to come back and try to understand this moment for myself later. It's really hard. It's a high level skill to be able to do the U-turn in the moment of the conversation. It's totally possible. I definitely have gotten to the place over a decade of paying attention to my parts and doing work in relationships where I can sometimes do the U-turn in the moment and say, okay, what's actually going on for me is this, and I'm seeing this part, and okay, I can be responsible for it in the moment, and I can turn things around and make the repair in the moment and say things in a more articulate way. But for years, I could not do that. And still sometimes I cannot do that, depending on what the thing is that gets activated. So for the sake of learning something new, because this is all like learning to ride a bicycle. Well, actually, my 3.5-year-old just learned how to ride a bicycle, and it took like 2 seconds. And then it's a skill that you have, once you get on there and master that, you kind of have it. But this is not like that. This is not as quick as learning to ride a bicycle. Not that it's easy for everyone to learn how to ride a bicycle, but this is more like going to the gym. This is more like getting our reps in and really building a new muscle and a new skill set that hopefully, right, once we build it strong enough, it will become instinctual to go back to this again and again. But at first, we might need a little reminder and a nudge. So to pause the conversation and to do this U-turn by ourselves, most likely, or with support with a practitioner, can also be really helpful. And to understand what happened for me in a moment, right? What is the trailhead? What is the situation that happened? And what came alive for me inside me? And we get, I could get more into this at a later time, exactly how to, slow things down. I teach a beautiful 5-step process that was given to me by one of my mentors. I teach that to the folks that I work with. And you can even go on to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to do an IFS U-turn with you to unpack a situation. I have some of my clients who are doing that in between sessions, and it's beneficial for them. I know people can have mixed feelings about AI, but I'm just putting it out there in case that's helpful to you. And so to really understand what happened, right? What did my mind make it mean? What did my parts, how did they interpret this moment? Or interpret what was going on for the other person or for myself. And to understand, how did my parts react? How did they fight back or pull away or behave, right? Because there are usually a few different parts that show up in these moments, right? The parts that were impacted, and then the parts that have a different behavior to help navigate those moments in relationship. And maybe you even can really get to the exile underneath and really understand what this situation is touching at a deeper level and what the fears are and the hopes underneath. And once you've done that work, right? And so I'm just blowing through the U-turn here really fast. And so once you've done that work to really slow down and come into relationship with the parts of you that get activated in these situations, then we need to kind of organize our thoughts about how to express this vulnerably from my heart, and not from the place of, when you did this, you made me feel like this, right? Because yes, they may have looked at their phone while you were at the dinner table and it made you feel a certain way, or they may have said one thing and done the other thing and made you feel like you couldn't trust, whatever the thing is, right? Can you express what happened for you when that situation happened, just for the sake of helping them know you better, and for the sake of taking responsibility for your own emotional experience by really caring for your own parts first, and then sharing with your partner or whoever you're in an intimate relationship with, sharing with them your experience. Me and my best friend, before either of us had partners, right? We were on our healing journeys, deep in our healing eras, and we would come to each other so often with things that maybe the other person had done that stirred something up in us. And we learned through trial and error, through doing this the wrong way, and then figuring out how to speak to each other from a place of love and respect, and also self-respect and self-responsibility, how to share our hearts with each other and share our experiences and share, sometimes the trauma or the, deep underpinnings, the exiles underneath what had happened to us that set us up for this experience occurring in this way. And what that does, right, is it actually makes possible a space of compassion and resonance when the other person is not feeling attacked or blamed for what's happening. And so speaking from our center is a skill that we will do imperfectly at first, but to really take the pause and do the U-turn. And then they say, and then do the return, which is coming back together and sharing what you discovered. And when they say sharing for our parts and not from our parts, right? You can imagine that your part is, next to you, beside you, and that you are kind of the translator of like, okay, like you're speaking for a 3-year-old that's too shy to share their experience, right? Like, okay, well, when this happened, a part of me felt X, Y, and Z, or a part of me thought that you meant X, Y, and Z. And that made that part of me feel really X, Y, and Z. And then another part of me came online and caused me to behave in this certain way, right? So we're really practicing this unblending in our sharing, this differentiation in our sharing. And yes, this is aspirational, right? We're not going to do this perfectly every time at first. But again, like I've been saying, it's a skill, it's a muscle, it's a process for creating safety in our sharing so that the other person has a better chance at hearing us clearly. And this is my offering to you today, is to next time you notice that someone says something or does something or something happens in your life that, right, that causes that feeling of like, oh, that gets you triggered and activated, that you can either take a break in the conversation and just say, actually, I'm feeling a little bit mixed up inside, stirred up. I think I need to slow this down. And can we come back to this, later tonight or in a little while? I need to make sense of something that's happening inside of me right now. I need to take a pause to do that, or to put a pin in it inside yourself and come back to it and really do that self-honoring thing of coming back so that you can understand what's happening inside of you and become responsible for it. Because this isn't about making the person you're in relationship with, so that they know what they do and how it affects you and so that they'll change. This is not about a manipulation to get them to change. I know, right? You may have some parts that want the other person to change and you want to share in a way that will make them change. This is not that. It doesn't work. But what does work is being able to share from your center, speaking for your parts in a way that has vulnerability and courage and is squeaky clean. That is actually the thing that helps them hear and understand and actually helps change. When we can let go of the desire to force them to change, and we can actually say, I saw this younger part of me that really took this thing you said the wrong way, and I see where it comes from, and I have the commitment to be in relationship to that part moving forward, and I'm just going to have to work with it in this relationship. If this is all sounding, okay, I can buy into this, I can be willing to try this out a little bit and see how it goes, I do have a resource for you, which is my unblending meditation, which can really help you slow down after a difficult interaction and understand more about what is showing up for you in that moment, right? It can help you unblend from those parts so that you can become in relationship to them. And then, only then, right? Once we're in relationship to them, do the work of bringing those back to our partner and sharing about what's going on for us. So the unblending meditation, I'll put a link in the show notes. That is there for you. And feel free to share this episode with someone who it might be useful to, and subscribe. And if you feel the nudge to leave a review and letting the world know how this series is helping you, I would be most grateful. It's so good to be with you in this space. And thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time.